Russia is not a great power. It ranks 86th in the world in per capita GDP. Russia has been living on its reputation. But great power is multidimensional strength, economic strength, political strength, military strength. And they're not that. I don't think the Europeans think Russia's a great power. They want to use that as an excuse for not carrying out their responsibilities in NATO. It's too great, it's too dangerous. Looking at the Ukrainian battlefield and trying to visualize, Russia is not a great power. This is what we discovered.
This is what was discovered in Ukraine.
But for another reason. It ranks 86th in the world in per capita GDP. It exists instead of industrial goods on the export of primary commodities and has an army that can't fight. So when we look at all of this, Russia has been living on its reputation. I think the Western Europeans do share the opinion that I have, but they like the lever of regarding Russia as a dangerous great power. By doing that, they create the justification for pulling out from the war. A justification is not built on a military analysis of what's going on, a justification being that they're even less great powers and they want to be left alone to make a living. I understand that. But we really have to redefine great power. I mean, China is sort of a great power. Its economy is falling apart and has been doing so for an extended period of time. Its Navy is still bottled up in the South China Sea. The U.S. Navy, they're constantly threatening to invade Taiwan, which they can't because it takes 9 hours to cross the Taiwan straits, and the United States may use missiles on these boats. And anyway, I mean, if you're going to have an amphibious assault, do it as a secret, not announce it constantly. So we have a very interesting problem. The definition of a great power was the United States and Soviet Union, right? Well, they're gone. Russia is not a great power. The Europeans are not great powers. They don't, but great power is multidimensional strength, economic strength, political strength, military strength, and they're not that. And the problem here is that the United States is the only country that can wield that type of military force autonomously, has an economy that's the largest in the world, and so on. It doesn't want the responsibility because psychologically it has come through a series of wars over the past 20 years that's lost. And it looks at Ukraine and says, is this the next one I'm going to lose? So what has to happen here is those countries that want us involved have to show the path. We would go. But the world has changed in the sense that there are other countries that can influence, have the weight to influence Russia. But whatever the Europeans think, the justification they now have is, well, we can't do anything, they're too powerful. But I think they like that thought. I don't think the Europeans think Russia's a great power. They want to use that as an excuse for not carrying out their responsibilities in NATO. It's too great, it's too dangerous. Look, Russia has one strength, the export of natural gas. I remind you of oil. I'll remind you of the arable oil embargo of the 1970s, which was very telling and hurt a great deal and everything, but it did not make Saudi Arabia a great power. Russia's in that position. It's got levers, but not sustainable. The problem that everybody has is they're looking at the Ukrainian battlefield and trying to visualize, as you said, how does it end? Well, in World War II, we knew how it ends. We didn't know if we could do it, but we knew how it ends. This is a war that we can't really define the end, and that's the problem. Because reasonable statesmen will look at this and say, how does this end? In the 1970s, we argued that the Arabs were now world powers because they cut Russia is a power. It can cut this supply of fuel, cut various other supplies. But at the same time, it cannot achieve a goal against, pardon me, a third-rate power, Ukraine, and is bogged down close to its border, unable to execute. So, what I would like to say from this is they'll lose. The problem is that the Russians can afford to stay there for an extended period of time and can't afford to lose, so they can't leave.